Hello, everyone. It's Argen Polmerica, and today I'm from Sense 1956 to talk about the split between Trump and Elon.
Long awaited.
Before we do that, to sing of the intro. Oh, I could just share a tab. Wait, let me just make sure the audio is going. Okay, we can share the audio. Right, there we go. All right, if you want to watch, go ahead.
This is Elon Musk, Tesla's co-founder and CEO. Elon is an inventor and a maverick entrepreneur, one of America's youngest billionaires.
So, interesting intro, if you are to say.
Oh, yes, especially given what you know about him now and where he's gone. And
so, fun fact, that intro comes from a National Geographic documentary called Mega Factories. And this thing I gotta say, it's a fairly mainstream documentary. It's not really one to generate controversy, so this goes to show that Elon was very popular within the mainstream environment. If, 8 years ago or whatever, National Geographic made that documentary on him, which clearly praises him.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
it's if you watch the documentary, it's clearly very friendly to Tesla.
Well, yeah, for years, he was a darling of many of the liberal tech community. For years, that was actually kind of left-coded, that entire Silicon Valley environment.
It was for me growing up. I always remember, I was always kind of shocked when I realized that a lot of people in Silicon Valley are actually right-wing, because when I was growing up, it always thought all of the San Francisco tech guys are these liberals that want to make things better for everyone. That's kind of the image that we've gotten, and that's not really how they're thought of anymore.
No, and it's part of it is just changing with the political winds. Once they realized, even Jeff Bezos, who was considered a lib for years, is now a lot friendlier to Trump. And he personally influenced the Washington Post not to endorse Kamala in the recent election.
Yeah, so I feel like the winds of tech are kind of shifting in favor. And then again, it's also kind of funny because, so it's interesting how Elon's image has changed significantly from being this liberal darling that is relatively uncontroversial and fairly popular into a very clearly political and polarizing person who's increasingly becoming unpopular.
And I think I can name the turning point where that happened. And it was when he bought Twitter and basically turned it into a megaphone of right-wing pro-Trump propaganda. Because, as late as 2021 or so, he was just that quirky rocket man who liked electric cars and wanted to save the world. But when he bought Twitter, he involved himself in politics.
Yeah, that's probably fair, but I think it actually started around COVID. Immediately less pronounced because, he was very outspoken against the lockdowns, which is a lot of Republicans take that position, but isn't necessarily right-leaning. I mean, Sweden, for example, never locked down, and they were run by lefties, so it's not necessarily right-wing, but, he's clearly shifting away from the left at that point, but, I would say the final straw in the public eye is when he bought Twitter and made it, very openly right-wing.
Yeah. And the other thing was, him and other tech bros generally had a reputation for being mavericks on everything. And this COVID, the shift you described about COVID lockdowns was part of that. And you're right, it was sort of the beginning of his shift towards ultimately the hard right. And what remains of what they all have in common, and what was always the case, is they believe everything can be fixed, right? Just we're out to save the world. And running Elon learned the hard way, you can't run a government like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also kind of inevitable that that way of thinking would run into problems against the left, who generally runs politics of like needing to do all this like sometimes very weird stuff to mend historical grievances.
Well, yeah, and also just the basic difficulty of running a state. Like, you can't just unilaterally cut all sorts of government spending. You know, a lot of it is chartered by Congress. You can't just unilaterally undo it without Congress passing such a law. And a lot of it goes to crucial stuff, and like that we don't even realize until they started going after all these funds.
Yeah. What's actually funny is, like, what's funny is that, like, what's kind of ironic is that Elon getting out, I mean, it's kind of a weird situation because in one part, you know, Elon pulling that bullshit about the Epstein files, like, revealing that all of a sudden, that's not going to be good, but, like, also just him being out of Trump's pocket in general will be good for him because he was just unpopular.
Yeah, no, and it's like a lot of his money comes from government contracts. You know, that's part of why SpaceX has been so successful. And if he's so erratic, the government might start looking elsewhere. But on the flip side of that, he can wreak serious havoc against Trump's administration if he wanted to by pulling SpaceX and pulling Starlink. And he said he could basically hand over the International Space Station and, like, even ban Trump from Twitter.
Yeah, or even to say this, but he could also like he could also toss a bunch of money. He could also clandestinely toss a bunch of money to the Democrats.
Right, and it's like
even I would be surprised if, like, you know, Democrats end up getting a bunch of money next year because, like, Elon, you know, he doesn't do it directly because nobody wants to be associated with him on the left, but like he could, like, you know. Maybe throw money to a third party and give it to the Democrats. Like,
yeah, no, and it's like there isn't much Trump could do directly to stop that without wrecking his own administration, as I mentioned. But again, it's kind of dubious whether Musk could unilaterally cut off such crucial national security operations. I mean, like, Tesla, his brand is tanking. It's like, part of this break might be he's desperate to start selling cars again without all this political baggage.
Yeah. No, but also, like, I don't think Elon should have realized the fact that, like, that his cars are more popular with lefties.
Right, you know, the whole environmentalist mindset. You know?
Not again, if I understand, it kind of depends. Like, some people say Tesla's an all right car on its own. Some people doesn't. I think it just depends on, like, the specific model you get.
Right. Like, I've heard a lot of negative things specifically about the Cybertruck, which I've ironically seen more of on the road in the wild. You know, it's just not.
I've seen my fair share of Cybertrucks. Yeah. I've seen their horn. It's like, it's hilarious. It's weird.
Right.
In fact, I could show you this horn. It's freaking weird.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's see. Let me show the Cybertruck horn, which I was getting ice cream one time and I heard somebody honking this because somebody, I think it was like somebody was parking. Somebody was like trying to park their Cybertruck and somebody wasn't, like, leaving fast enough, I think.
That's the thing.
Let me show you this. This is weird.
So I just picked 5-6 days ago.
Okay. Sounds like the buzzer from Among Us.
Oh, God. No, it sounds like you're banging on the lower keys of a piano. I mean,
banging on the lower keys of the piano. Yeah, I was going to say this, but yeah. The thing is that the Cybertruck, from what I've heard, is different from other Tesla cars because it was, like, much more of if I understand the Cybertruck, like if I understand, Elon had much more influence on the design of the Cybertruck than he did for other Teslas, which are just normal cars that were just
No, it's like,
electric.
isn't it based off a drawing of a car his kid drew? You know, like a triangle on two wheels or elementary school stuff. It's kind of funny how they tried to make an actual car based on that.
That's actually kind of cute, if I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
but like, it's not
yeah.
a sound design for a car. Like,
And it's like it doesn't carry as much as a normal pickup truck. The doors have sharp edges that you can cut yourself on. It's the field of vision isn't as good as on a regular car windshield. All these things that just make it apparently a very substandard vehicle in every way.
yeah, I've heard the same thing about the Cybertruck. I see a lot of them though. It's like I see a lot of Teslas in general around here, but like I've seen my fair share of Cybertrucks, even in California. Still, people like.
Okay, well, yeah, no, it's like I've seen more and more of them around here, and the point apparently of them is this apocalyptic survival vehicle. No car on the road will match your Cybertruck in terms of stuff it can run over, and it's like it seems like something that would appeal to deeply insecure people, if you ask my opinion.
That's like most pickup trucks. Like most
To be fair.
like most American pickup trucks are made to they're basically designed to like be able to like beat other cars on the road. Like, that's one of the appeal of them.
Yeah, no, and it's not something that you'd really need outside of rural areas, like in terms of basic car functions. But
Yeah.
you know, it's a
Well,
way
even
of,
truck functions. It's a terrible truck. It doesn't haul many goods at all. It's not because it's electric. It's just, it's not very well designed as a truck. Like for actually doing what a truck is supposed to do.
yeah, like you can't even fit a bicycle in the back seat, like you can in a regular pickup.
Like what? Wait, you can't fill a bicycle in the back
Well,
seat?
or you can sort of, kind of, but like one wheel hangs out.
Damn.
Yeah, so no, it's like I've heard negative things about the Cybertruck and even other Teslas too, like they lock automatically when on fire and scary stuff like that.
Lock automatically went on fire. That sounds insane.
Yeah, well, this was from a few years ago and they might have, hopefully they fixed it. But still, that's a big problem.
Yeah, that's always the problem with a lot of these The problem is that a lot of times AI, like the problem is that a lot of times these electronic instruments have a tendency to not be a lot of times these electronic gadgets and all that they have a tendency to actually make things less safe. There's plenty of examples of that in aviation history. Like, you know, airplanes have a lot of stuff to make it safer, but there's sometimes where an instrument just doesn't work or a pilot doesn't know how to use it, so it's not particularly unheard of.
Right. No, and so, yeah, that's why I'm kind of dubious that AI and automation will replace everything, because there's still a long way to go on that stuff.
Yeah, I think Jay down here can compliment. If anyone plays Hearts of Iron 4, we'll have second thoughts about having AI replace humans.
Right, and that's another big thing these tech bros like promoting, and like we said, it's a long way away.
Yeah, my experience in Hoi 4 makes me question that if AI will actually be as good as people. Because there's a reason that in that game, if a major country is AI for like a few minutes, it could end the game.
Right, or it's self-implodes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a freaking mess when AI takes over countries in those games. So, yeah, continuing on, I kind of want to get a little bit back to the main subject. And wait, when did we start? Okay, 14 minutes. Okay. I'm just wondering, like, so what do you think about the Trump-Elon split? Was it inevitable, or?
I think it's inevitable. Like, throughout history, partnerships between two men with very big egos don't last very long. I mean, we saw this as far back as Caesar and Pompey. I mean, come on. It's like, inevitably they'll clash over something. Inevitably they'll have conflicting ambitions. inevitably they'll want all the power for themselves.
Yeah, because you were always telling me, yeah, Trump and Elon are going to split. Trump and Elon are going to split. And it was like, yeah, you were vindicated on that one.
Yeah, no, it's like people as far back as like November were taking bets on when it would happen. And those who predicted within half a year or so were closest to the mark.
Yeah. Did you predict it would be this soon?
I actually didn't hedge a bet, but at least within a year. That's what I was guessing. Because, like, in many ways, Elon's agenda and Trump's, America First stuff are at odds. It's like Elon is a hyper-libertarian tech bro who wants to deregulate everything, and a lot of the MAGA movement are closer to a paternalistic and protectionist conservatism.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's like Elon, among many things, probably doesn't like all these tariffs because, his business empire would not exist without international trade. And Trump and the ideologues around him genuinely don't like trade very much. I mean, he's talked about tariffs since the 80s.
Yeah, that's actually one of the few things that I think tariffs are one of the things that Trump actually believes to heart.
Yeah, because everything else, he's willing to say and do whatever to get power, but he genuinely wants to go back to the time when, we made everything, union jobs were middle class, the men worked, the women stayed at home. He has this romanticized view of the America he grew up in, which was, of course, a product of its time, a product of the post-war era when everyone else's industry was in total ruin, so we were undisputedly dominant in manufacturing.
So you just think Trump has a romantic era of the America that he grew up in?
Yeah, that's part of it. And he just sees you got to make things here as part of patriotism. That's just how he sees it. That's just his basic worldview.
Yeah. But then again, a lot of times I feel like, he's backed off on a lot of his tariffs because, like,
because he's smart enough to see what the consequences of them have been for both the market and for approval ratings. And we're talking about a few days ago that his approval ratings are going back up now that the tariffs aren't as much in the news. And they plummeted when the economic effects of them started to show. So yeah, it's like as much as Trump believes in tariffs, he still has enough brain left in his skull not to unilaterally tank his own presidency over them.
I see.
And going back to the original point, that was probably something that Musk disagreed with.
I would also argue, I would say a big moment that I thought, Trump and Elon are going to break up was the H-1B controversy.
That was an early warning because another part of this tech bro ideology is high-class immigration, especially from Asia and places like that. You got to import their elite human capital, whereas the more traditional MAGA types are very, very strongly nativist, anti-all immigration.
Yeah. Well, the traditional, Well, the traditional MAGA types think these, high-skilled immigrants are just cheap are like high-class cheap labor stealing their jobs.
Yeah, they think they take jobs from Americans and that it's all zero sum. There's no such thing as mutual benefit. Every job going to them is a job Americans lost. It is just a very black and white view of the world.
Yeah.
So that was an early warning sign when the H-1B people lost, I think. Well, Elon stayed, but Vivek Ramaswamy left. He was supposed to co-head Doge. And now he's just not in the White House at all, and supposedly going to run for.
Then again, I think Elon himself. Elon isn't even American. Elon is South African. And
he's literally an immigrant. That's the thing.
Yeah. Elon himself is an immigrant, so I think he took that to heart when Republicans opposed H-1B.
Yeah, no, he said that on his Twitter that this is very, very personal for me.
Yeah. He himself is an H-1B immigrant, and he wanted to stand up for his own people. And I don't think exactly went very well because, well, mainly people who came on H-1B.
Right. But of course, that was an early warning sign because Trump's big signature policy is a draconian crackdown on illegal immigration and even some forms of legal immigration.
Yeah. Well, I think he wants to reduce legal immigration and deport all illegal immigrants. Is his plan?
Yeah, no, it's like his view is just only high quality immigration.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. But I think Trump does actually support H-1B, but a lot of his base doesn't.
Yeah, and so he's kind of treading the fine line between what would work and even what he believes in with appeasing his MAGA base. Though I honestly think there's not much at this point that Trump could say or do that would alienate them. Even if he freaking causes a second Great Depression, they'll find a way to blame it on the libs or on Biden or anyone but their leader. I mean, he has a very strong cult at this point.
Yeah. Who has a bigger cult of personality, Trump or FDR?
I still think FDR has him beat, winning all states but one. Trump is more of a divisive figure than one. FDR at his peak had near universal support, all but a tiny minority. And Trump has never had that, ever.
Yeah. No, but are his followers more devoted than FDR or no?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, they might be because they freaking broke into the Capitol on his behalf, and I can't see FDR ordering his followers to do such a thing. But
I don't think he would.
Trump's people have a proven record of being willing to kill for him. I mean,
Jesus. Yeah, it's probably bigger. I want to say it was because FDR had a bigger cult of personality, but a less potent one.
Right. Because he was fundamentally loyal to the constitutional order of the U.S., and Trump is more dubious on that, let's say.
Yeah.
Trump would very happily have supreme power for himself.
Yeah. But then again, I don't think he's actually going to pursue that. If anything, the Elon firing shows that I don't think he's likely to succeed or pursue that type of power.
Right. I mean, it's not even that he doesn't want to try. It's that our system as it stands is strong enough to constrain someone trying to do that. And, as they've learned, they've set off on this mad demolition spree of just about everything they find useless, and it's harder than you think. There are all sorts of lobbies. There are all sorts of veto points for everything. Congress is paralyzed. Courts can't overturn stuff. I mean, it's not that you can just come in and run it like a business. And that's what many of his supporters believed.
Yeah, or at least that's what Elon wants for the government to be.
Right. No, because he's used to running stuff at business speed. And, it's harder when the courts are challenging everything, and which is their right because we have judicial review and due process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's not silly to say that it's good the government's paralyzed all the time, but it is how it is.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, it's a bad thing most of the time, but, if you have an aspiring dictator, it's a good check on them.
Yeah. That's why I never thought Trump was going to become a dictator. I just was he's not. Everyone was scaring about Project 2025, and I was there he's not going to succeed at becoming a dictator, even if he tries. And I feel like I'm kind of vindicated with the Elon thing because if you want to become a dictator in the United States, you wouldn't throw away support from the richest person in the world so quickly. It's just
yeah, absolutely. It's again, part of it is just he's too incompetent to try and do this.
Yeah, I think Trump, I think Trump's getting old, and I think him just beating the Democrats one last time is probably one of his last wishes.
True. Yeah. No, it's again, I think he's starting to lose it. I think he's starting to become senile, and we're no stranger to having senile people as presidents. Let's be real. Our government can basically function even if the guy at the top is a vegetable. But I think we're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. And I think it's going to be more of a struggle between the people around him. And with Elon out of the picture, it's going to be Vance, Miller, Bannon, those types, and maybe some more traditional Republicans like Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio,
Yeah.
all fighting to...
I do wonder if this whole thing will be kind of the unraveling of the MAGA cult of personality where some of the Republicans go against what he says.
I hope it is. I mean, part of that is that Trump has no obvious successor at this point. I actually doubt it's going to be Vance because, well, Trump is funny, to say the least. Vance isn't. He always comes across as super serious and super lectury, and it's off-putting for those who aren't already in the cult.
Yeah, but what's funny is that Vance actually is a working class background, unlike Trump.
Yeah, no, it's like Trump loves to position himself as the champion of the working class, and he's always been upper class. He's always been rich, but he's been low class in his temperament, and that's what attracts them.
Yeah,
whereas Vance is someone who was raised in that environment, and to this day is kind of insecure about being about his place in the upper classes.
Yeah. Well, you're saying you think Vance is kind of overcompensating? Like he wants to be like an upper class person, but he doesn't quite know how to do it.
Well, yeah, there's that, and like he's insecure that other upper class people will never truly accept him. That's another part of it.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair assessment of that, and like. Because you have to remember, and because I understand he kind of has contempt for, like, the people he grew up around, if I understand, like...
Right, yeah, no, but basically Hillbilly Elegy was about how they're a bunch of lazy losers, and their poverty is their fault. I mean, of course it's more complex than that, but that's the basic thesis of the book.
Yeah, the basic thesis in the book is that everyone in Appalachia is a loser, and and their poverty is like their fault and all that, and
which explains why he's not as popular there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's going to be Vance. Maybe it could be Rubio. Maybe it could be one of these lower-ranking Republicans. But I'm not sure that Trump's charisma and political skill will pass on to someone else.
Yeah, he's kind of don't want to say this. Like, I know since you're an Eastern Europeophile, like, doesn't it kind of remind you of Tito, where he's kind of a cult of personality in that way?
Well, sorta, but in Tito's case, he was, as it turned out, basically holding the country together.
Yeah, but I feel like Tito was a more skilled politician than Trump,
that's the thing. Like, he was actually.
I'm saying he had a similar cult of personality of being able to hold a bunch of different interest groups together.
Well, yeah, but his was more of a nationwide and unifying one, well, totalitarian, where Trump's is divisive and a small portion of the population, not small, but a minority, fanatically supports him, and another minority is fanatically opposed. So it's different in that way. And as far as the MAGA movement goes, his departure from the scene might well mark the end, or at least.
You think the MAGA movement's gonna fall apart when Trump leaves?
I mean, anything could happen, but I think it's likely.
Yeah. And so, what do you think will replace them? I mean, I guess maybe a different kind of Republicans. I think a lot of people don't like the neocons, so it's hard for me to see them.
I mean, it's hard to predict at this point, just as much as it's hard to predict who the Democrats will field next time around, because they don't have too many real personalities at this point.
The Democrats are struggling.
Out of nowhere. It could be LeBron James running in 2028.
Honestly, I genuinely would not be surprised if LeBron James ends up being our next president.
We've done that dance before. We know how that turns out.
Yeah, I do wonder if he will form as much of a cult of personality as Trump. I'm not
It's Trump. Anyone who manages to mobilize the Dems to a degree Trump has mobilized his followers, and who manages to defeat the MAGA types will have that kind of cult.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would not, be surprised. I'm betting 80% or whatever that the next Democratic president is a political outsider.
Yeah, because that's the age we live in.
Also, just because people are
anti-system candidates.
Feels like the country's kind of sick of establishment Democrats after Biden dropped down after Harris lost.
Yeah, no, of course, establishment Republicans are on the back foot. And so this is, again, a trend around the world. People like alternatives. People are tired with the old elites.
Yeah. And it's funny because, because people elected Biden in 2020 as kind of a return to normalcy with COVID. Because, I think part of the reason Biden got elected is really more of a return to normalcy during the pandemic. I think a lot of people wanted that. And then after they're disappointed with Biden, they switch back to Trump.
Right, because things didn't return to normal. I mean, we had the post-COVID inflation, and the invasion of Ukraine really just overturned the world order. So we didn't get the much promised return to normalcy because the world had irrevocably changed as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I think everyone wanted a return to normalcy after COVID, and it's part of the reason Biden won.
No, totally. But, I mean, it remains to be seen whether people will look for something like that, because this seems to be the new normal.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny just how many politicians have branded themselves as outsiders. Like Obama definitely did. It's argued that Bush Jr. did. And
it goes all the way back to Andrew Jackson.
Did.
It's a classic trope in U.S. politics. People love to claim to be the Washington outsider.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the first Washington outsider was Andrew Jackson.
Right. Yeah, because, he used that to appeal to the common man, which, of course, at that time, all white men had recently gained the vote.
He was like the first president to allow all white men to vote.
Well, yeah, it was a gradual process that was completed by mid-century, but his rise was a product of it. And, that's why it was called the age of the common man.
Oh, yeah, because that's when, the average white person gained the right to vote.
Yeah, so, and again, that was... I mean, you could trace a lot of our populist woes all the way back then, because the founders believed our system should only be for the educated, or at least many of the founders did.
Yeah, and Andrew Jackson, he campaigned on opposing that at the time.
Right. So, if you hate populists, go all the way back to the source. That's what I say.
Yeah. Yeah, so talking about the topic of the Trump-Elon split, what do you think? Are there any other examples of this happening in history besides, Caesar and Pompey?
I mean, every time a party has had more than one dominant, charismatic leader. I mean, every time there's a junta, there's inevitably one person who emerges as the dominant member, as opposed to some kind of a shared leadership. I mean, in the Soviet Union, too. That's another classic one. Stalin was able to totally marginalize and ultimately kill all his rivals for the Soviet leadership. He was not going to share power with the likes of Trotsky.
Yeah, but then again, and then Khrushchev, when he could... I mean, the Soviet Union didn't fall apart, but, Khrushchev took the country in a very different direction than Stalin.
Yeah, and he was ultimately able to marginalize his rivals like Molotov and Kaganovich and Malenkov and the like. He didn't purge them like Stalin had, but he soft purged them. He sent them into diplomatic exile as various minor posts and heads of collective farms and the like. So yeah, again, you see this throughout history. Big men tend not to like to share power.
Yeah. So you're saying that's why you thought the whole Trump-Elon thing was inevitable, because it's generally common throughout history that...
Yes, and they both are notorious for having very big egos and being very full of themselves.
Yeah. And I also want to mention the fact that Trump and Elon just have different interests. Elon cares more about his business, while Trump cares more about his presidency and his supporters.
Cares more about his power. Yeah, I mean, they both want power, but they see different ways there. And visions of America.
Elon cares more about Tesla. Elon cares more about Tesla sales and all that. Trump cares more about retaining political power with his supporters.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is inevitable that the whole interest will break. And I think you were right on calling earlier that the part of the breakup will be the tariffs, because Trump wants to appeal to his base, to his supporters, by giving his tariffs. And I think he actually believes in tariffs. And Elon wants to keep the tariffs low because his business has a big international base.
Right, absolutely. And I think he was willing to keep his mouth shut as long as that happened. But he spoke up when it came to government spending. That's another of Elon's pet projects. He seems really committed to slimming the government and cutting spending. And of course, Trump's big, beautiful bill did nothing of the sort.
Yeah. This is like one way, because like both Trump and Elon are businessmen, but this is the one way where like Elon wants to run the government as more of a business than even Trump does.
Right. Trump is very addicted to this populist and gives me that style of politics, whereas Elon is genuinely committed to this lean and mean, rapid business model.
Yeah. But it's to say, because it's funny because you think they get along, because part of Trump's campaign was him running the government as a business, but like I think that he's kind of moved away from that. Well, Elon is still on that mentality. Like,
yeah, I would agree. No, and it goes to show the different forces in modern conservatism and libertarianism, and how it can be a very unstable coalition between protectionists and free traders, libertarians, and
God, tell me about it.
Yeah.
I've literally seen that play out in my eyes. I know that stuff.
In your own Discord chat, I mean.
Yeah, not my own, but yeah, I've seen that happen before. Like, where like conservatives and libertarians, like, initially start off cool, but then they start to like kind of break off with each other.
Right, and like during the Cold War,
if anything, it's kind of like, it's not really similar, but it kind of reminds me of what happened to me in the Admin Utopia server, where like people were killing each other at first, but then eventually they kind of broke up because of their differences.
Yeah, exactly that. And I was going to say, during the Cold War, they were united by anti-communism. That was the one thing they all agreed on. But afterwards, you started to see the splits becoming more and more apparent. And you see that to this day.
Yeah. There's, of course, the conservatives and libertarians. Like, you always see these lefties online saying they're similar. I mean, they really aren't. Like, no.
It's like when you really start pressing them, there's so many.
Yeah, that's the whole thing to say. Conservatives and libertarians, like, they genuinely have, like, Elon's not a total libertarian, but he definitely leans in that direction. And, like this is, I'd say, conservatives and libertarians have many different beliefs, even if they have, coalitions with each other.
Right. And it gets harder when they have to share power and do actual governing.
Yeah. Because, if you remember Trump, but Trump did some, like, remember when Trump freed Ross Ulbricht to, like, give a win to libertarians? Yeah,
I remember that.
I was saying, because I remember at the time that was like an easy thing he could do to get the support of libertarians.
But of course, he's not. He's a huckster by nature. He doesn't really care about following through on these promises. And also, he said, I remember on the campaign trail, that he'd appoint a libertarian to his cabinet, which of course has not happened.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it yet, so yeah. Yeah.
Phew. So yeah, that's the outcome, like, of this Trump-Elon dispute remains to be seen. Like, I have relatives actually who think it's all just a big show and they'll dramatically reconcile soon. I think it's too early to say. I mean, the stuff that Elon calling Trump a pedophile is going to be hard to get around.
I'm not sure they'll reconcile. Like, I'm gonna say this.
Right.
Also, by the way, I gotta clarify for anyone watching. When I'm referring to Admin Utopia, I'm not referring to my band. I'm referring to what happened before with the people in their splitting. So I just want to clarify that. So yeah, let's move on. So yeah, I'm gonna say this. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they'll reconcile for now, but like I think Trump and Elon's coalition is unstable. I think it'll eventually break.
Right, and it's like in any normal human relationship, all sorts of Rubicons have already been crossed. Him, like Elon called Trump a pedophile. Trump called Elon a drug addict just today.
Yeah,
and, like who knows? They both have a lot to gain from both being in power.
Yeah,
but will they be able to put their egos aside?
Yeah, but eventually Trump's base is going to push him to do the tariffs, and I think, if anything, that'll be the breaking point. Like,
Right.
The tariffs are going to tank Elon's business, and that's the time where he's going to go jump the silver hoot, or, on the time that Republicans, another H-1B controversy could pop up. It's like that relationship is like freaking fragile, and I think it's going to break sooner than later.
If it's not dead now, it's definitely on ice. And again, Elon does have that businessman's instinct of he's not going to back policies that totally ruin him financially.
Yeah.
And Trump doesn't care. He just wants power.
Because remember, Elon himself isn't even American. I'm not sure how much of America's national interest he actually holds in his heart. Like,
there are serious concerns of conflicts of interest with China.
Elon is a cosmopolitan. He's like, he doesn't necessarily hold like the same like nationalist foundation of America that like the Republicans do.
Right. And of course, he has a lot of business in countries that are our geopolitical rivals, like China.
There's a big Tesla factory in China.
So yeah, and it's like people have, for reasons like that, worried about him being given access to Pentagon secrets.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like those in the administration who genuinely are concerned about countering China might not be too well disposed to his continued presence.
Yeah, so I just think their interests are fundamentally different, and I think that relationship's going to crash sooner than later.
If it hasn't already.
Yeah, if it hasn't already, they might reconcile. They might, reconcile for a little bit, but in the end, it's going to break sooner than later.
Totally agreed. And, we'll have to see what happens these next few days because they might try to reconcile or they might be done. And that would be very interesting to watch unfold.
Yeah. So I think it's getting a little long, so I'm going to call the podcast here.
I was going to say, this is a good point to wrap up.
See you chat later. I'm going to go a little bit longer than I said, so see you later.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.